Doppelgängers are identical copies of a living person but with something off. Many cultures believe that seeing your own doppelganger is a bad omen. Some even say it means death or a terrible event is near. But what happens when you see someone you think you know, and they aren't supposed to be there? Here are 4 terrifying real-life encounters with doppelgangers, shared by people who will never forget what they saw.
It was a quiet afternoon. I was lying on my bed, scrolling through my phone, enjoying the silence of the house. My parents had gone out to run some errands, and my sister was somewhere in the house. The sunlight filtered through my curtains, casting a warm glow over my room, making everything feel normal. Then, there was a soft knock on my door. Before I could even answer, my sister pushed it open slightly and peeked in. She looked completely normal, wearing the same oversized t-shirt I had seen her in earlier, her hair slightly messy from the heat. She had a neutral expression, though her eyes seemed a little rushed. "Hey, do you know where Mom went?" she asked casually. I barely looked up from my phone. "She went to the store," I replied absent-mindedly. She nodded, stepped back, and closed the door behind her. I didn't think much of it. It was just a casual moment. Until 5 seconds later, when my door opened again. I looked up, and my sister was standing there. Again. This time, she looked confused. Her face was slightly scrunched, her eyebrows furrowed as if she was trying to process something. "Why didn't you answer me?" she asked, irritation creeping into her voice. A chill spread through my entire body. My grip on my phone tightened. My heart stopped for a second. "What?" was all I could say. She stood there, waiting for me to explain myself, but I had nothing to say. I had just spoken to her. I had just seen her. I had just answered that exact question seconds ago. My skin went cold. Something was wrong. I jumped out of bed, rushed past her, and into the hallway, my breath uneven as I scanned the house. First the hallway, then the bathroom. Then the living room. Every shadow, every corner, every place where someone could have been hiding. Nothing. No one. There was no way someone could have walked away that fast without me hearing footsteps. I turned back to my sister, hoping for an explanation. Maybe a prank, maybe a weird joke, but she just stared at me, waiting for my explanation. To this day, I can't stop thinking about it.
I've always been uneasy around mirrors. I can't explain why. Something about them makes me feel like I'm being watched from the other side. But nothing prepared me for that night. It was almost 3 a.m., and I had gotten up to use the bathroom. The house was completely silent, except for the creaking of the wooden floor beneath my feet. I turned on the light and looked in the mirror as I always did. That's when I noticed something strange. I moved my head slightly, but my reflection lagged behind. It was just a fraction of a second, but it was noticeable. I blinked, trying to convince myself that I was just tired. I lifted my hand and waved it. Again, a delay. And then it smiled at me. But I did not smile. My heart stopped for a moment. My reflection just stared at me, lips curling upward in a slow, unnatural grin. My own expression was frozen in shock. I flipped off the light and ran back to bed, pulling the blankets over my head like a child. I refused to look at the mirror again that night. The next morning, I woke up and noticed something that sent chills down my spine. The bathroom door, which I clearly remembered closing, was now slightly ajar. And on the mirror, there was a faint smudge, as if something had been pressed against the glass from the inside, trying to get out.
I've always recognized my mom's voice. I mean, how could I not? I grew up hearing it every day. But that night, I wish I hadn't. It was past midnight when I heard her call me from downstairs. "Sweetie, come here for a second." I was wearing headphones, so I almost missed it. I paused my music. Then, I heard it again. "Come down here." Something about the way she said it made me uneasy. I called back. "What do you need?" Silence. A creeping sense of dread settled in my stomach. I don't know why, but every instinct told me not to go. But I did. Slowly, I walked down the stairs. And then, I saw her. She was standing in the kitchen, perfectly still. She was looking right at me. But there was something wrong with her face. Her eyes were empty, like two black voids. And then she smiled. Not a normal smile. It was too big, stretching unnaturally wide, like her mouth had been pulled at the corners. I couldn't breathe. My feet refused to move. And then I heard something behind me. A soft creak on the stairs. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see. At the top of the staircase was my real mother, rubbing her eyes, half asleep. "What are you doing down there?" she mumbled. I snapped my head back toward the kitchen. The other version of my mother was gone. I slept in my mom's room that night. And I never, ever went downstairs alone after dark again.
Working the night shift at a hotel is usually quiet. Most nights, it's just me at the front desk, answering the occasional phone call, monitoring the security cameras, and trying to stay awake. But there was always something about the hotel. Something in the way the lights flickered sometimes, in the way some hallways felt colder than others. I always had this feeling that I wasn't really alone. That night, it was quieter than usual. The clock read 2:37 a.m., and I was fighting off sleep, taking slow sips of my now lukewarm coffee. Then I heard it. Footsteps. They were coming from the back stairwell. Immediately, I turned to the security monitor. The stairwell camera showed nothing, just the dimly lit steps leading up to the higher floors. But the sound was clear as day. Tick, tack, tick, tack. Someone was coming down. My stomach twisted as I squinted at the screen. Then, a shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. A human figure, just barely out of focus, standing completely still. I quickly switched to another camera angle for a better view. But when the new feed loaded, there was no one there. The stairwell was completely empty. But the footsteps? They were still coming. By now, they were halfway down the stairs. I swallowed hard. The air felt thick, pressing against my chest, making it harder to breathe. And then, I saw it. A figure stepped out from the darkness, just at the edge of the camera's view. And my blood ran cold. Because it was me. Or at least, it looked like me. Same height, same build, same uniform. But something felt wrong. I couldn't see its face clearly. It was slightly out of frame. But I knew it was watching me. A suffocating stillness filled the air. I could feel something staring back at me through the screen. Then, it took a slow step forward, stepping into the full view of the camera. I blinked. It was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. The air lightened, as if whatever had been there had simply vanished. But I knew what I had seen. That night, I never used the stairs again. I stayed at my desk until the sun rose. And when my shift was over, I took the elevator down.